That was a very, very good passage, Jordan. Um, what is the relationship to Gears of War? Uh, why'd you bring that passage to us today?
Um, what happens in many parts of Gears of War? I mean, we start to see narrative leaps into the minds of the characters in the third game. But what happens often in Gears of War is that there's so much nonstop action, that there's so little time for introspection, that we just assume what's going on in the characters' minds by what we encounter in the game. I mean, there are a few moments where we actually get dialogue that characterizes. I mean, one moment is you brought up earlier, Cole saying, "You ever have that moment where you feel you're already dead?" I mean, that's a gorgeous one. I don't feel it characterizes as strongly as. Didn't he say? Someone was asking him like, "Why are you so good with the fan?" And he's like, "Cause my mama taught me right."
Oh yeah. Cole's mama.
Cole's mama. Yeah. And so what happens is we assume we know what's going on with these characters, when in reality it's impossible to know what's going on with these characters.
I would. The creepiest level in Gears of War was Ashman.
Yeah.
When it was just all these people who died, and the ash was like their shadows left here on Earth, and it was kind of creepy because there's someone who dressed like a ash man, and he's setting traps for you. But that time when you see these people in their day to day life, like a picture was like frozen in that time before they died. I want to hear what other people, I want to hear more of their reactions to it, because that's pretty haunting. And I know it's military, and they're like, emotion we gotta set out the door because there's bogeys out there we gotta shoot. But I mean, this is a point in the game where they could have went far.
Yeah, well, I mean, I personally, that was, I mean, you have the moment where Marcus says, "Let's show some respect for the dead," and then you get the idea that the Cogs were behind that they dropped the Hammer of Dawn on that city.
Yeah.
And because of that, that's why all those people are petrified there. I think dialogue going into something else would be a little bit more interesting and more haunting, in leaving that just like unspoken for, because what do you say to that? I mean, what can you say to that? Seeing a person petrified there.
Yeah. I mean, you could say whatever that probably feels natural. Kind of like
Well, no, like, I mean, there's
there's
a
when
moment
Cole's
where
talked about his mama, he could be like, mama never told me to
no,
kill, or
because I mean, there are moments where there are just no words, where human language just fails us absolutely and completely. I mean, I remember one time there was this time, like, I saw a photograph of the aftermath, like a series of photographs taken of the aftermath of the bombing of Hiroshima. And there was this one picture I saw where, so when the nuclear blast happened, people's ashes were etched into the walls behind them like shadows.
Yeah.
And so they were like shadows disembodied, and there was a medical student or some sort of scientist or something. He was wearing a hazmat suit. He had a Geiger counter, which is the clicky thing that
for radiation?
measures radiation.
Okay.
And what do you say to that? Like, what do you say when? I mean, there are obvious reactions of grief you could have, but there are ones that are not so obvious, and I don't feel dialogue would be an effective tool there particularly, unless the dialogue came up somewhere later. Like, say we saw that in the first game, and in the third game, out of nowhere,
It's like old hat to them. They're like, again.
no, well, third game, out of nowhere, you get a flashback to the Ashmen with like no warning. You're just thrown in there, because Gears of War 3 started doing that, where they have
Flashback time, yeah.
where they have flashback time, and I mean, that would have been more effective. but I don't feel they could have talked about that.
Okay, well, okay, if that's not a good example,
Or
do you think a good
unless
example is the prison, or
well, unless like we could go back to that. Like, say, I mean, there's a character in the things they carried.
oh yeah,
Is it
Good
Rat
story.
Kiley? It's been a long time since I've read this book. I love this book though. Is it Rat Kiley who always cracks jokes at inopportune times? Because
I
there could be a moment where like Baird says something completely off base and absolutely terrible, and you're just like, why would you say that? I mean,
He
like,
seems
why
like
would
the
you
guy
say
that
that?
say that.
Yeah, because it comes to the point where when people are constantly surrounded by things that are bad, they have to do whatever they can to raise their morale. I mean, if you're constantly in negative situations, your body has a natural chemical response to equalize it. So you can't like there's this myth of happiness in Western civilization in the past 20 years that people can be happy. When, I mean, most of the time we are at what's it called, homeostasis
okay.
emotionally, where either where we have a level of calmness and status quo to whatever we're saying, or to whatever we're feeling, and happiness, like etymologically, it comes from the Old English hap, which means lucky. So happiness is just the luck of being alive. So these characters are going to find ways to cope with the terrible, terrible things they're seeing. I mean, some of them are going to cope with humor. Some of them are going to cope
The awkward
by,
guy at the dance who's on the wallflower.
yeah,
That's his only way. He can't ask the girl. He just has to be in the corner because of fear,
yeah. Well,
silence.
yeah, and like, I mean, eventually, there are moments that absolutely break you, that break this homeostasis, that make a deep dive into either depression or its opposite. But
Yeah, as soon as you said that, it reminded me. You remember that one character in Gears of War 2 with that tattoo on his face?
yeah,
Was his name Ty?
Ty. Yeah,
Yeah, and he just broke down. I think it was the shotgun, and he just shot himself. And Marcus is like, no, like, why would you do that? But for him to be like incarcerated by the locusts, probably torturing him or doing something, he just couldn't take it anymore. And that was his way to cope. You know, he couldn't live on. That was really, I don't know. That wasn't really a sad part. I mean, it was kind of creepy, kind of horrible because you don't know what happened. All you like from him ending his life, you just know something bad happened. I wish we would see more of that, and especially like Dizzy. I was really glad Dizzy came in the third one. That's like my spirit character. Every time I play on Xbox Live, I'm always either Dizzy or Cole, but like a little bit more on Dizzy's character because I like him, being the mechanic, and but I don't know. There wasn't really much to explore with Dizzy. There was more
Well-
exploration with Cole, Marcus, Dom, not even Baird. Only
Well-
Baird's Hughes branched out with that one girl when they were having tit for tat thing, and it was supposed to be like they were supposed to have a love connection, but it's like he always had a line saying I don't like you, and I mean I would figure the Baird of all people, someone who's always saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, and he's got that douchey mentality, just like, but
this is all assumption, I think.
assumption for what?
Like, I don't know.
I mean, I wish there was more character
like,
development on him.
no,
That's
like,
what I was saying.
yeah, no,
Not
I know.
Assumption.
Well, I mean, I personally
what
thought
do you-
they brought Dizzy back just because Gears of War gets so token. Like you've got hey, I've got Mexican character number 1, I've got Mexican character number 2, I've got black character. Here's the douchey white guy. Like, I mean, like I personally think they just brought Dizzy back in the third game so he could be the redneck character, and then he can hang out with Jace, who's black character number 2, and then it can show, hey, look, we've got ethnic diversity in Gears of War. There's no such thing as racism. Like kind of
Two
like
each.
yeah, kind of like that whole thing that happened in that one movie, Independence Day, where we get Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith, and they use their common culture. They like have this big talk about where there's only one race on this planet, the human race, but I mean they're forced together, and then they commit genocide on an entire alien species, and this is lauded as a moment of triumph, and under this guise of human solidarity, under this guise of getting rid of racism, when in fact if there was a little bit more infighting, if there was a little bit more tension between these characters, I think that game, Gears of War, would be so much more haunting.
Well, the thing that you said, because okay, genocide, good, bad, we've talked about that. But the thing that you said that was interesting. Oh, we're running out of time. Oh, we're running out of time. We'll take a break, and we'll come back to hear what I need to say about that.
Okay.